The great chamber of the alien council was filled with silence. The walls curved high above, glowing with soft blue light. Strange symbols moved across the air, alive like fireflies. Dozens of alien elders sat in a wide circle, their tall bodies shining with silver robes. Their eyes glowed faintly as they studied the one who stood before them. It was a human, the first human to ever step into this hall. His steps had echoed when he entered, his small figure looking fragile compared to the towering beings who surrounded him. Yet there was no fear in his eyes. He stood calm, with his hands at his side, his breathing steady. The elders had seen many creatures from across the stars. They had welcomed traitors, soldiers, and even conquerors. But a human, standing so simply, without armor, without weapons, was a rare sight. One elder leaned forward. His voice was like a low echo of stone. "Human, why have you come here?" The human raised his head. His voice was quiet but steady. "I was invited," he said. "You wish to understand my kind." The chamber hummed with whispers. The aliens were curious but also doubtful. What wisdom could such a short-lived creature offer them? These elders had lived for centuries. Their minds held libraries of knowledge. Their ships crossed galaxies. And yet here was a human, no taller than their chest, speaking with the calm of someone who carried no fear of them. The elder's gaze moved downward. His glowing eyes stopped on the human's hand. There, around his finger, was something small, a simple circle of metal, shining faintly under the chamber's blue light. The elder tilted his head. His voice grew softer, yet sharper. "What is that?" "The circle you wear on your hand." The chamber fell quiet. Every alien eye turned toward the object. To them it looked ordinary, almost useless. Not a weapon, not a tool, not a piece of alien technology. The human lowered his gaze to the ring. For a moment his expression softened. His lips curved into the smallest smile. He raised his hand slightly, letting the faint light catch on the polished surface. "This?" he asked. His voice carried warmth. "It is a ring." The elders stared. The word was strange to them. A ring. The sound of it carried no power, no science, no mystery, just a circle of metal. One elder leaned back, whispering to another. "Perhaps it is a weapon, something hidden." Another shook his head. "No weapon. Too simple. Too plain." But the oldest elder did not speak. His eyes stayed fixed on the human's face, waiting for an answer that was more than just a name. The human seemed to understand the silence around him. He closed his fingers, gently turning the ring against his skin. His voice came again, calm but carrying something deeper. "This is not a weapon. It is not magic. It is a promise." The aliens shifted uneasily. The word promise had no equal in their tongue. Their translators whispered other words: bond, duty, agreement. But none carried the same weight. None carried the warmth that filled the human's voice when he said it. The human's eyes lifted again. He looked around the circle of glowing faces. "This ring is a memory. It is a bond. It is a reminder that even across the stars we are not alone." The elders fell silent. They had expected talk of machines, of wars, of human cunning. But not this. Not a simple circle of metal, carrying something invisible yet stronger than steel. The oldest elder's fingers trembled slightly. He leaned forward, his voice breaking the silence. "Explain," he whispered. "Tell us why this promise is so important." The human drew a slow breath. His eyes softened as he looked once more at the ring. In that moment, he did not see the great chamber or the glowing elders. He saw a face from far away, a smile, a memory carried through distance and time. The chamber waited. The story was about to begin. The chamber of the alien council grew still. The sound of voices faded, and even the glowing walls seemed to dim as all eyes fixed on the human. He stood small in the center of the great circle, his hand still resting against the ring. The oldest elder leaned forward. His voice was low. but it carried across the hall. Human, you speak of this promise, but what is a promise? Explain. The word echoed strangely in their language, translated yet not complete. The aliens understood contracts. They understood bargains, rules, and laws, but the way the human spoke, there was something else in it, something they did not know. The human smiled faintly. He touched the ring again and spoke slowly, choosing each word with care. A promise is not a law written on paper. It is not forced by power. A promise is when one heart speaks to another and says, I will not leave you. I will not forget you. And even when no one is watching, the promise still holds. The elders whispered among themselves. To them, loyalty came only through fear or advantage. Armies obeyed their generals because of strength. Traders honored deals because of gain. But to hold loyalty when no one demanded it, that was something different. One of the younger elders laughed, his voice sharp. Empty words. Metal shaped into a circle. Do you mean to say this is more than our fleets? More than our science? The human did not flinch. His voice remained steady. Yes, because fleets and science cannot follow you into the dark, but a promise can. The younger elder grew quiet, unsure how to answer. The oldest elder spoke again. His eyes glowed brighter as if something in the human's words stirred a memory buried deep within him. Tell us of this ring. Where did it come from? The human's gaze softened. His voice lowered, but every word reached the chamber. This ring was given to me by someone I love, long before I traveled the stars. It was not made of rare metals or strange crystals. It was simple, but it carried her heart, and in return it carries mine. He paused, his fingers brushing the ring as if feeling a warmth only he could sense. When I look at it, I remember her. I remember that I must return. I remember that no matter how far I go, I belong to someone. I am not just a traveler in the dark. I am someone's promise. The hall fell silent again. The aliens had seen countless wars. They had conquered systems, erased worlds, and built cities across galaxies. Yet none of their victories had ever been for something so small, so invisible. They had power over stars, but no word for love. Another elder leaned forward, his voice softer than before. Human, why would such a bond make you strong? Does it not make you weak to carry a chain on your heart? The human looked at him, and for the first time his eyes shone with quiet fire. No, it makes me stronger. Because I do not fight only for myself. I fight to return. I fight so the promise is not broken. That is why we endure. That is why humans survive when all else says we should not. Our strength is not only in what we build, it is in what we hold inside. The chamber trembled faintly as if the hall itself understood. The oldest elder lowered his head. His long fingers pressed against the stone before him. His people had traveled for ages, seeking wisdom in the stars. But here, standing before them, was a being whose life was short, whose body was fragile, yet whose heart carried something eternal. Slowly, the elder spoke again. All our knowledge, all our centuries, and yet we never thought to bind ourselves with such a promise. We speak of power, but perhaps we have always been empty. The human shook his head gently. You are not empty. You only forgot. Promises are not only for humans, they can be for anyone who chooses to keep them. The words hung in the air like a soft flame. The younger elders looked at one another, some with doubt, some with wonder. But none could deny that something had shifted in the chamber. The oldest elder's hands trembled. His voice cracked as he asked one final question. Human, do you still believe this promise will last? Even across the stars, even beyond death? The human touched the ring again. His eyes glistened, but his voice was firm. Yes, because a promise lives longer than we do. The elder closed his glowing eyes, and for the first time in many lifetimes, a tear slipped down his cheek. The great chamber was silent, heavy with the echo of the human's words. The alien elders sat unmoving, their glowing eyes fixed on the small figure before them. The human stood still, his hand resting lightly on the ring. For a moment, the hall seemed less like a council of power and more like a place of listening. The oldest elder spoke again, his voice low but steady. "Human, you speak of promises and love, but words are wind. Tell us, who gave you this ring? What story does it carry?" The human drew a slow breath, his gaze lowered for a heartbeat, as if he were seeing something far away, something beyond the chamber. Then he began to speak. The beginning of the promise. "I was young when I met her," the human said softly. "Not a soldier, not a traveler, just a man living on his small world, beneath skies filled with stars I could not yet touch. She was the light in that world. Her laughter was brighter than the sun, and her eyes held more mystery than the night." He paused, and for the first time his voice wavered. "One day we decided to make a promise. We stood before our families, before our people, and we said the words that bound us. Not with chains, not with law, but with choice. She gave me this ring, and I gave her mine. 2 circles, endless, without beginning or end. A symbol that our bond would not break." The aliens leaned closer. Some tilted their heads, others narrowed their glowing eyes. A simple ritual, yet the way the human spoke of it gave the metal circle weight heavier than worlds. The separation. "Not long after I was called to leave," the human continued. His eyes grew distant, his voice quiet. "The stars opened, and I had to go. I told her I would return. I told her this ring would remind me every day that no matter how far I traveled, she would never be lost to me." The chamber hummed with low whispers. The idea of leaving one's bond behind, yet carrying it through memory, was alien to them. They had no such symbols. When they left their homes, they did not look back. "She held my hand," the human said, his voice trembling now. "And she said to me, 'Do not let the stars change your heart. Do not forget who waits for you on the ground you once called home.'" He pressed the ring gently between his fingers. "And so I came here, across the void, across dangers you cannot imagine. I faced wars, I faced loneliness, but always when I thought I would fall, I looked at this ring. And I remembered." The lesson one of the younger elders raised his voice. "But why? Why carry such pain? You could free yourself. Forget her. Why suffer with a chain that holds you to the past?" The human turned his eyes toward him. For the first time, fire burned in his gaze. "Because it is not pain, it is strength. The ring does not hold me down, it lifts me up. It gives me reason when all else is lost. You call it a chain, I call it wings." The elder grew silent, unable to answer. The oldest elder leaned forward again. "So this is your story, not of conquest, not of science, but of love. A bond that even the stars cannot break." The human nodded. "Yes, that is what makes us strong. That is what makes us endure. Our ships are fragile, our lives are short, but our hearts carry more than any machine." The weight of silence. For a long moment, no one spoke. The aliens, creatures of centuries who had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, now sat humbled by the story of a single fragile being. The oldest elder's glowing eyes dimmed as he whispered, "We measure our worth by what we control. You measure yours by what you give away." The human looked down at the ring once more. "Yes, because what we give away is what lasts. This circle of metal will remain when my body is gone, and even then the promise it holds will not die." The words struck like thunder in the still chamber. The quiet tear. The oldest elder, so ancient his skin bore the marks of ages, lowered his head. His long fingers trembled against the stone table before him. And then, to the shock of all, a single tear rolled down his cheek. He whispered, his voice breaking, "We have searched the stars for wisdom. We have conquered, studied, and built. Yet we never knew this truth, that the greatest strength is not in power, but in the heart of a human, carrying a promise. The chamber filled with silence once more, but it was no longer the silence of doubt. It was the silence of awe, and in the center stood the human holding his ring, not as a weapon, not as a tool, but as a story that even the stars would remember. The human's words still floated in the air, soft yet heavy, like an echo that refused to fade. The ring glimmered faintly on his hand, but in that moment it seemed brighter than the glowing walls of the chamber itself. The elders sat unmoving. Their silver robes shimmered, their glowing eyes fixed on the human. For all their centuries of life, for all the galaxies they had ruled, none of them had spoken of love the way this fragile creature had. The oldest elder, seated at the highest point of the circle, slowly lowered his head. His long fingers curled against the cold stone before him. His chest rose and fell as though a weight pressed against him. And then, it happened. A tear. It slipped from the corner of his glowing eye, rolling down the curve of his aged skin. The chamber gasped. The sound was sharp, as if 1,000 voices had inhaled at once. Elders who had not wept for centuries turned in shock. For their kind, tears were rare, almost unknown. They prided themselves on logic, on control. To see their leader weep was like watching a mountain crumble. The oldest elder's voice trembled as he spoke. "Human, your story has pierced me, deeper than any weapon." The human stood quietly, unsure of what to say. His hand remained over the ring, his gaze steady. The elder lifted his head again. His eyes glowed, not with power, but with something fragile, something human. For centuries we have measured greatness by how much we control, by the worlds we conquer, by the fleets we command. But you, his voice cracked, you bring us a truth we never sought. That strength is not in control, but in giving, not in conquest, but in love. The chamber remained silent. Every elder, from the youngest to the oldest, stared at their leader. Many looked unsettled. Some looked angry, unwilling to accept such a revelation. But others leaned forward, their eyes shining with curiosity. One of the younger elders finally spoke, his voice sharp. "This is weakness. If we let such emotion guide us, we will fall. Love cannot shield us from war. A ring cannot stop death." The oldest elder turned his gaze on him. His voice grew strong again, but it carried sorrow. "No, but it gives reason to rise after war. It gives purpose to survive death. Without purpose, we are hollow. Without promise, what do we fight for? Territory? Pride? Empty things." The younger elder fell silent, unable to argue. The human finally spoke, his tone gentle. "You see my weakness, but I tell you it is my strength. You may live for centuries, but He placed his hand against his chest. "I live each day with meaning because I know it can be my last. And I fight to keep my promise, even when the stars turn against me." The words rang in the air. Even the glowing walls seemed to hum in answer. The oldest elder leaned back slowly. His hands trembled as they rested on the stone. His voice lowered, heavy with realization. "All my life, I thought wisdom was written in books, hidden in stars, forged in machines. But wisdom walked into this chamber today in the form of a fragile creature with a small ring." Another elder, quieter than the rest, whispered, "Perhaps this is why humans endure, not because of power, but because they refuse to forget those they love." The oldest elder nodded slowly. His tear had dried, but his heart had changed. Yes, the human carries eternity not in his body, not in his science, but in his promise. The turning point. The chamber shifted. The elders began murmuring, their voices low but filled with wonder. Some resisted, shaking their heads, unwilling to accept that such a small thing could hold greater weight than knowledge or weapons. But others leaned closer, eager to hear more. The human stood silent, watching them. He did not gloat. He did not boast. He only touched the ring again, as if reminding himself of the face he carried in his heart. The oldest elder finally raised his hand, and the chamber grew still. His voice carried strength again, though softened by something new: humility. We have much to learn, perhaps too much. But I will say this: today, in this hall, the human has taught us more than 1,000 years of conquest. He turned his gaze back to the visitor. Human, your promise is now ours to remember. We will carry it in our minds, and perhaps in time we will learn to carry it in our hearts. The human bowed his head slightly, his voice quiet but firm. Do not carry my promise. Carry your own. That is the way it lives. The oldest elder closed his eyes, and though his people had ruled the stars, for the first time he felt small and free. The chamber of the alien council glowed with a strange stillness. The words of the human hung in the air like light that refused to fade. Elders who had seen stars born and die were now silent, shaken by a story of love, promise, and a small circle of metal. The oldest elder remained seated high above the rest, his hands trembling against the stone. His glowing eyes studied the human, and his voice broke the silence. Human, we have power beyond count. We command fleets that blot out suns. We bend science to our will. Yet in all our centuries, we never thought of what you call promise. Today you have struck at the heart of our pride. And I ask you now, what is the true lesson of this ring? The chamber leaned forward, dozens of eyes fixed on the human. Even the walls, alive with their faint blue glow, seemed to lean in. The human did not rush. He touched the ring again, his fingers gentle. His voice came low, steady, but filled with fire. The lesson is simple: power fades, knowledge can be lost, but meaning is what endures. A ring is only metal, but we give it meaning. A promise is only words, but we live by them. That is why we endure when we should not. That is why we rise when all else falls. Because we hold on to meaning. The oldest elder's eyes widened, glowing brighter. The chamber stirred. The human stepped forward slightly, his voice carrying stronger now. You ask what makes us strong. It is not our bodies, they are fragile. It is not our years, they are short. It is not even our machines, they break. What makes us strong is this: we remember, we love, we keep promises even when the universe tells us to let go. The elder's struggle. One of the younger elders rose suddenly, his robe flowing like silver fire. His voice was sharp, filled with resistance. Words. Nothing but words. What good are they when war comes? What good is love when the enemy strikes? The human turned his eyes on him, calm yet fierce. They are the reason to fight. Without love, why rise at all? Without promise, why endure pain? You fight to win, we fight to return. That is the difference. The younger elder froze, unable to answer. His glowing eyes flickered with doubt. The oldest elder slowly rose to his feet. His tall form loomed over the chamber, yet his movements carried no pride now. He looked at the human as if seeing not a fragile creature but a mirror showing him his own emptiness. He spoke, voice heavy with truth. All our victories, hollow. All our centuries, silent. We filled the stars with monuments, yet none carry the weight of a promise. We ruled, but we did not love. We conquered, but we did not belong. Today, a human shows us what we never dared to seek. The transformation. The elder's glowing eyes dimmed with humility. His hand touched his chest where no ring lay, no symbol of bond, no sign of belonging. For the first time he felt the absence. He looked at the council, his voice breaking. Perhaps we were never truly wise. Perhaps wisdom is not in power, but in love carried across the dark. If this fragile being can hold eternity in a circle of metal, then what are we with all our pride, but children lost in the stars? The chamber erupted with murmurs. Some elders wept silently. Others stared, shaken to their core. A few still resisted, their eyes burning with denial. But the weight of the truth pressed on them all. The human bowed his head slightly. It is not the metal that matters. It is not even the words. It is the choice we make to keep them even when it is hard. That is what makes us who we are. The elder's voice grew soft, almost a whisper. And this choice, this promise, it made you strong. The human nodded. Yes, stronger than fear, stronger than death. Because even if I fall, the promise remains, it lives beyond me. The lesson revealed, the chamber grew utterly still. The elders looked at the human, and for the first time they saw not a fragile being but a force greater than any fleet. The oldest elder sank back into his seat. His glowing eyes were wet once more. His voice shook. You have given us the greatest lesson, that the heart carries more power than any star, that a promise can outlast even death. We will not forget. He raised his hand, and the chamber bowed in silence. The human stood, quiet but steady, the ring glowing softly as if the stars themselves bowed with the council. The elder whispered one final truth. Perhaps the greatest power is not in science, not in conquest, but in love carried by a human hand. And perhaps that is what makes you greater than us all. The chamber trembled with awe, and in that moment the story of a ring, simple and small, became a lesson for an empire. The chamber of the alien council was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes not from emptiness, but from awe. The human stood in the center, small but unshaken, the faint glimmer of his ring catching the blue light of the walls. Around him the elders sat, their glowing eyes softened. The weight of centuries hung on their shoulders, but for the first time they seemed lighter. The oldest elder lowered his head. His voice was soft, but it carried through the hall. Human, you have given us something we did not know we were missing. You have shown us that power without love is hollow, that promises outlast empires, that meaning is greater than conquest. We will not forget this day. The human bowed slightly. His voice was calm. I am only one man. My story is not special. Every human carries a promise. Every heart can hold meaning. You do not need me. You only need to remember. The elder's eyes glowed brighter. But you are the first to speak this truth to us, the first to make us see what our pride has hidden. That makes you more than one man. That makes you a teacher. The word sent murmurs through the chamber. A human called teacher by the oldest of elders? None had ever heard such a thing. Some elders shifted uneasily, unwilling to give such honor to a fragile creature, but many bowed their heads in silence, accepting the truth of what they had witnessed. New beginning. The human stepped back, his hand still resting on the ring. His eyes grew distant, as if looking not at the aliens, but at a memory far away. I do not need honor, he said softly. I only need to return, for there is someone who waits for me. She waits on a world far away, under skies that do not glow like yours. And every step I take, every word I speak, is for her. The chamber grew still again. The human's words carried more power than any weapon. The aliens understood now. This was why humans endured. This was why they could never be broken. The oldest elder stood tall, his voice deep. Then you must return. The promise must be kept. We will not stand in your way. Instead, we will honor it. For the first time in their history, the council bowed to a human. Silver robes swept across the floor, glowing eyes lowered. The human remained still, humbled, his hand tightening gently on the ring. The elder's gift, but the oldest elder did not sit again. He reached into his robe and drew out something small, something ancient. A crystal, faintly glowing with golden light. He held it out with trembling hands. This is a shard from the first light, older than our empire, older than our fleets. We have kept it as a symbol of wisdom. But today I see it was never ours to hold. Take it, human. Let it guide you home. The human hesitated. His voice was quiet. I cannot accept such a treasure. The elder shook his head. It is no longer a treasure to us, it is a reminder. Just as your ring is to you. Keep it. And when you return to the one you love, let this crystal shine beside your promise. so that even when stars die, the memory will live. The human accepted it with slow hands, bowing deeply. Then I will carry it, not for myself, but for her, and for all of you, who must learn what a promise truly means. The farewell. Council rose as one. The chamber glowed brighter as though the very walls honored the moment. The human turned to leave, the ring still gleaming, the shard of light now in his hand. Every step echoed through the vast hall, carrying with it the weight of history. The oldest elder whispered almost to himself, "Perhaps the greatest power in the universe is not written in stars, but in the heart of one who refuses to forget." The human did not look back. His path was clear. The hook as he stepped beyond the chamber doors, the faint hum of alien voices faded. He stood alone in the vast corridors of the alien world, holding the crystal close. The ring caught the golden glow, shining brighter than ever, but as he walked toward the waiting ship, his steps slowed, his brow furrowed. The crystal pulsed once, twice, like a heartbeat. The light grew warmer, stronger, almost alive. The human whispered to himself, "What are you?" In the distance, unseen by him, the oldest elder still watched, his eyes clouded with both wonder and fear. For he knew the shard carried more than wisdom. It carried a secret, one that could change not just the human's promise, but the fate of every star. The doors closed. The journey was not over, it had only just begun. The human's footsteps echoed in the long corridors of the alien citadel. Behind him, the council chamber grew silent once more. But the weight of what had happened lingered in every corner of the ancient walls. He carried two things now: the ring warm against his skin, and the shard of the first light glowing faintly in his hand. The ring was a promise. The shard was a mystery. As he walked, he held it close. Its glow was soft at first, golden and calm. But every few steps it pulsed, like a heartbeat. The human frowned. He had seen many strange things in his travels, but this felt different. This felt alive. The warning when he reached the docking bay, his small ship waited. Its hull bore scratches from countless journeys. It was nothing compared to the vast fleets of the aliens, yet it had carried him across the dark before, and it would again. But as he approached, a voice called behind him, "Human." He turned. It was the oldest elder, walking slowly, leaning on a carved staff. His glowing eyes were dimmer now, as though the council meeting had drained something from him. The elder's gaze fixed on the shard. His voice lowered to a whisper. "Be careful. That crystal carries more than light. It carries memory. Some say it remembers the first dawn when the stars were born. Others say it remembers what came before." The human frowned. "Why give it to me then?" The elder closed his eyes. "Because perhaps it belongs with someone who understands promise. We could not use it. We only guarded it. But I fear, once it awakens, it may not remain silent." The human looked at the shard again. Its glow seemed stronger now, as if it had heard the words. He slipped it into a pouch close to his chest, beside his heart. "Then I will carry it," he said simply. "And I will protect it, as I protect this ring." The elder nodded slowly. "Then may the stars guide you, but remember this. When light remembers, it does not always remember gently." The departure, the human boarded his ship. The engines hummed to life, filling the bay with a low rumble. As the ship rose, the alien world shrank behind him, its towers, of silver fading into the dark. He set the course for home, for the world where she waited. His hand brushed the ring as he always did before leaving a world, but this time, the shard's glow filled the cabin, painting the walls with golden fire. The human sat in silence. He should have felt relief. He had spoken before the council, survived their judgment, and left with their respect. Yet the shard's steady pulse unsettled him. "Why me?" he whispered. No answer came. Only the glow, steady, alive. The vision hours passed. The stars stretched into lines as the ship entered faster than light travel. The human closed his eyes, to rest. But when he drifted into sleep, the shard pulsed again, bright, brighter, until the cabin disappeared. He was standing in a vast field of light. Stars burned around him, but they were not cold. They pulsed like living hearts, each one whispering faint echoes. He reached out and the shard hovered before him, larger now, glowing like a sun. And then he saw them. Shapes in the light. Not alien, not human. Something older. Something vast. Their voices filled the air, deep and layered, speaking not with words but with memory. You carry the promise. The human stepped back, his hand tight on the ring. Who are you? The voices merged into one. We are what came before the stars. We are the memory of light. And now, we remember you. The field of light shook. The shard pulsed faster. The human tried to speak, but the voices drowned him. Promise bearer. Heart carrier. You awaken us. The vision shattered. The awakening, the human woke with a gasp. The cabin was dark except for the shard. It burned with golden fire now, brighter than ever. His ship's instruments flickered, alarms flashing, unable to read the energy. The human grabbed the shard, pressing it to his chest. His voice was steady, but his heart pounded. I don't know what you are, but I made a promise, and I will not let you break it. The shard pulsed once, softer, almost in answer. Outside the ship, the stars twisted strangely, bending as though the universe itself had turned its gaze. The human stared into the dark. He had left the council with wisdom, but now he carried something greater and far more dangerous. The promise was no longer only his. The shard had remembered, and the memory was alive.